Hey guys, so just to remind you, we're just picking up from where we left off. This is part 2. You're still tracking here, okay? Gabriel's eyes, irritated by the floor, which glittered with beeswax under the heavy chandelier, wandered to the wall above the piano. So, the chandelier, we think of a chandelier now as having light bulbs in it, but of course back then it had candles in it. That's actually where chandelier comes from, candles, right? So the wax would fall. Beeswax is an expensive and clean burning type of wax. Pay attention to the references that he makes here. Some of this is modernist stuff, just trying to reference things in, but some of it is
I love you, Mom.
I love you too, Amy. Foreshadowing. Foreshadowing of some of the things that are going to come up later. So he says, a picture of the balcony scene in Romeo and Juliet hung there, and beside it was a picture of the 2 murdered princes in the tower, which Aunt Julia had worked in red, blue, and brown wools when she was a girl. There's brown. The 2 murdered princes are from Richard III. This said Richard III murdered his 2 nephews so that he would succeed to the throne. Probably in the school they had gone to as girls, that kind of work had been taught for 1 year. His mother had worked for him as a birthday present, a waistcoat of purple tabinet, with little foxes' heads lined upon it, lined with brown satin, having round mulberry buttons. It was strange that his mother had no musical talent, though Aunt Kate used to call her the brains carrier of the Morkan family. Both she and Julia had always seemed a little proud of their serious and matronly sister. Don't worry about the waistcoat. This is just a thing. This is just a thing that, don't worry about it, okay? It's just a piece of clothing. Amy, stop. Her photograph stood before the pier glass. That's the photograph of his mother, Ellen. She held an open book on her knees and was pointing out something in it to Constantine, who, dressed in a man-of-war suit, lay at her feet. So Constantine is Gabriel's brother, and he's dressed in a sailor suit. It was she who had chosen the name of her sons, for she was very sensible of the dignity of family life. Thanks to her, Constantine was now senior curate in the Balbriggan, and, thanks to her, okay, so he's a priest, basically. Gabriel himself had taken his degree in the Royal University. This is important because the Royal University, well, who were the royals? English or Irish? They were English, so it shows a deviation from the Catholic instruction, which is something that they used to call the university question, partly how much Catholic instruction should be included in the schools, and partly should women be admitted. And actually women were accepted into the elite universities in Ireland in like 1903, I think, whereas in England, women weren't accepted until much later. So when you hear the university question, it may be one of those things. So thanks to her, he had taken his degree in the Royal University. A shadow passed over his face as he remembered her sullen opposition to his marriage. So shadow is dark, right? You've got to be thinking light and dark. I'm not pointing all of them out. Some slighting phrases she had used still rankled in his memory. She had once spoken of Greta as being country cute. That's not a nice thing, by the way. Like cute, but not beautiful or sophisticated, right? And that was not true of Greta at all. It was Greta who had nursed her during all her last long illness in their house at Monkstown. This is interesting because according to some of the critics, this is the only positive representation we see of somebody in Dublin in the text. Somebody who does something genuinely kind, compassionate, and meaningful. He knew that Mary Jane must be near the end of her piece, for she was playing again the opening melody with runs of scales after every bar, and while he waited for the end, the resentment died down in his heart. I'm wondering if it's a resentment towards his mother and her judginess of Greta, or his resentment of the melody, the sophisticated but kind of boring piece that Mary Jane is playing. I don't know. The piece ended with a trill of octaves in the treble and a final deep octave in the bass. Great applause greeted Mary Jane as, blushing and rolling up her music nervously, she escaped from the room. The most vigorous clapping came from the 4 young men in the doorway, who had gone away to the refreshment room at the beginning of the piece, but had come back when the piano had stopped. Lancers were arranged. A lancer is like an even more complicated quadrille. Gabriel found himself partnered with Miss Ivers. Hey! If you're annotating for Miss Ivers, your time has come. She was a frank-mannered, talkative young lady, with a freckled face and prominent brown eyes. She did not wear a low-cut bodice. A bodice is the neckline of the dress. So everyone else seems to be wearing a low-cut shirt, but she isn't. So maybe it's not as festive, but it seems to be kind of a favorable impression. And the large brooch, which she fixed in the front of her collar, bore on it an Irish device and motto. A brooch is a pin that women would wear sometimes to connect their, at the neckline of their dresses. And an Irish device. So the Irish, as I said, have their own language. Oh, they speak English, and they were forced to speak English. Their language is Gaelic. And so the Irish device is probably in Gaelic, and I think it's a device. It says something about our language and our words or something. When they had taken their places, she said abruptly, "I have a crow to pluck with you," which is like a bone to pick with you. "With me?" said Gabriel. She nodded her head gravely. That means seriously, but again, we're looking for that death imagery, so it's just really cute of choice. "What is it?" asked Gabriel, smiling at her solemn manner. "Who is G.C.?" answered Miss Ivers, turning her eye upon him. "Okay, quick! Gabriel Conroy, who's G.C.?" "Yeah, that's right. But we don't know what's happening, so we've got to figure this out." Gabriel colored and was about to knit his brows as if he did not understand, when she said bluntly, "Oh, innocent Amy, I have found out that you write for the Daily Express. Now, aren't you ashamed of yourself?" Okay, innocent Amy is like a common Irish phrase meaning somebody who's pretending to not know when they really do. And the Daily Express, remember before we talked about nationalists and unionists, and then unionists were people who wanted to keep in union with Great Britain, and the Daily Express was a unionist paper. So she has found out that he has been writing columns in the Daily Express, which is a unionist paper, and using the signature GC. So she's figured out it's him. "Why should I be ashamed of myself?" asked Gabriel, blinking his eyes and trying to smile. "Well, I'm ashamed of you," said Miss Ivers frankly. "To say you'd write for a paper like that. I didn't think you were a West Briton." "If you're not scandalized. Let me tell you why. All right. So remember our beautiful map of Great Britain? Here is Ireland. Here is England. And so Ireland is to the west. So to call him a West Briton is to say he's not Irish at all. He's just somebody who's English who lives in the West. It's like if you don't own your Elk Grove identity and we call you a South or Southern Sacramentan. Because South Sacramento is a whole different thing. Okay, that doesn't really work. But do you understand that she's insulting him by calling him a Briton here? Okay, so what we have to do now is we have to stop. Oh, crud, I might have messed up. Okay, the reason I thought I messed up was because we have to read from this passage. So we're going to find together, because it does say West Britain, but I jumped the gun a little bit. A look of perplexity appeared on Gabriel's face. It was true that he wrote a literary column every Wednesday in the Daily Express, for which he was paid 15 shillings. 15 shillings, by the way, is like a week's worth of wages, so that's a lot of money. But that did not make him a West Briton, surely. The books he received for review were almost more welcome than the paltry check. He loved to feel the covers and turn over the pages of newly printed books. Nearly every day, when his teaching in the college was ended, he used to wander down to the quays to the second-hand booksellers, to Hickey's on Bachelor's Walk, to Webb's or Massey's or Aston's Quay, or to O'Clohissey's in the By Street. He's just naming places in Dublin now. He did not know how to meet her charge. He wanted to say that literature was above politics, but they were friends of many years' standing, and their careers had been parallel, first at the university and then as teachers. He could not risk a grandiose phrase with her, so he wants to say literature is above politics, but he knows that she's too smart for that. She's going to tear him down. He continued blinking his eyes and trying to smile, and murmured lamely that he saw nothing political in writing reviews of books. Noticing here that Gabriel sometimes just can't act. He stands by. He's passive. Somebody says something to him that's insulting, and he's just like, well, and he thinks of things to say, but he can't ever really act on them. When their turn to cross had come, he was still perplexed and inattentive. So turned to cross refers to in the dance. They're doing the lancet, remember? So it means they have to move across the room or something. But it's kind of clever because, of course, he's had an opportunity now to cross Miss Ivors and her strong nationalist opinions and her judgment of him. But he didn't take advantage of his turn to cross. So it's a little clever thing that Joyce does now. Miss Ivors promptly took his hand in a warm grasp and said in a soft, friendly tone, "Of course, I was only joking. Come, we cross now." When they were together again, she spoke of the university question, which we've already talked about, and Gabriel felt more at ease. A friend of hers had shown her his review of Browning's poems. That was how she had found out the secret. But she liked the review immensely. Then she said suddenly, "Oh, well, hold on, wait. So about Browning, she liked the review, meaning she understood Browning. Remember, he was saying that most of the people there would not have understood him, would have understood Browning, and so we see that Miss Ivors is his intellectual equal." Then she said suddenly, "Oh, Mr. Conroy, here is where this starts, so I'm actually going to start another video. Hold up."